Hello, and welcome to the Carolinas Luxury Real Estate Podcast, Season 6. For all those new to the podcast, please feel free to follow the link in this episode to all our past seasons and explore all the great luxury real estate content. On today's episode, we are talking about Ivester Jackson's newest $40 million listing, Sagee Manor. I'm your host, Sam Sparks, and joining me to discuss this topic is Reed Jackson, the managing partner of Ivester Jackson Distinctive Properties, Christie's International. Thanks for joining me today, Reed.
Thanks for having me, Sam. It's a really special property to get a chance to talk about. The attention to detail and the uniqueness is just kind of unrivaled on the East Coast, I would say.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm really excited as well to talk about this landmark listing. It's huge and it's magnificent.
Yeah, it's an interesting property. It was originally purchased part of the mountaintop by a gentleman out of Atlanta back around 2000, and literally took him 5+ years just to develop the site. They originally had to dynamite roads in, and there's a ton of rock outcropping formations up there. And so, moving around, big boulders and granite and things like that to create a suitable building pad. And so, really he, just invested a tremendous amount of personal time and energy to kind of fulfill the vision of what has now become Sagee Manor.
Yeah, then it's incredible. I went on there and did some research and kind of pulled up the history about it, and it's incredible. I mean, a history that goes back over 100 years. It's really, really interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's in the process of building it, they actually assembled like shops on the mountaintop so that the craftsmen could work and hand cut and hand trim various architectural pieces that went into the property, the stonework and the exterior cladding, the planking, et cetera, are all, were all done mostly on site there, which, made the house incredibly expensive to build, but also, custom in an unrivaled way.
Yeah. And talk to me about, how it took as they say, a city to build this, right? I mean, they were branching out to all different cities from Atlanta to Nashville just to get the skilled laborers to complete this project, correct?
Correct. Yeah, there were brought in some stone specialists from Tennessee and Kentucky, and also some really accomplished wood millworking craftsmen who worked on the interior and exterior of the house. And so it was really a passionate investment by the Fisher family, that took them literally probably a decade plus to complete the initial phase of the property. But it's, spectacular in a way you won't find on a lot of East Coast properties for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Now, what's the backstory on how, you or Ivester was selected to market Sagee Manor?
Well, so interestingly enough, we have a joint venture in Highlands that is run under the Christie's flagship. So it's Christie's International Real Estate Highlands Cashiers, which is kind of the Highlands Cashiers Plateau is kind of that region. And so we did a joint venture with our partners, Blackstream in Greenville, South Carolina, and then also Ansley, Atlanta, which is Beno Ansley's company. And so just a great opportunity for us to do a joint venture up there. And this particular owner happens to be South African. And so he has spent a lot of time in Johannesburg and Cape Town, and then he also has offices and property in London, was flying to New York quite frequently. And so he wanted a kind of a family compound type property on the East Coast of the U.S. that he could get to within 2 hours of leaving New York, and also spent a lot of time in South Florida and had a place in the British Virgin Islands. And so was really looking for kind of a very centralized yet spectacular mountaintop setting, and looked and owned property in Colorado for a time and then ended up here. And so his preference because of the international appeal to him, was to have a brokerage that could market internationally. And so, he really only interviewed one or two other brokerage candidates. And I think the fact that we could kind of bring Christie's to life for him with the relationships that we have around the globe. We're on a first name basis with, some of the top Christie's affiliates, Aaron Kerman in Beverly Hills and Michael Zingroff in the French Riviera. And ironically, even Mike Grief, who runs the Christie's affiliate in Cape Town, South Africa, had actually done some marketing for us of homes that we have here in North Carolina. And so I think the present owner was really impressed with the fact that the network actually, does collaborate to market each other's properties.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's funny, I was thinking, when they were trying to furnish and decorate this manor, man, I bet they wish Christie's had been around to pull some of that art auction stuff there, don't you think?
Well, there's certainly some pieces and some, finishes in that property that are pretty unrivaled. There's actually, a fairly heavy European influence. I think if you look at the, wall coverings and some of the woodworking, it's got a mountain feel, but it also has really kind of a timeless, classic architectural feel and interior design feel.
Yeah, they went more Tudor, correct, as far as the style? Tudor.
A little bit, yes. Yep. And then, the interior has a lot of classic kind of Northern European influence, some English and, he's South African, so there's some European influence there as well. But it's truly a sensational experience, both inside and out.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to get out there and tour the property. It looks just magnificent. So talk to me, Reed, how has the current offering been enhanced from previous years?
Well, and so this current owner has kind of undergone almost a decade-long 8-figure enhancement to the property. And some of those enhancements have been exterior and some have been interior. And so on the exterior side, there have been additional parcels adjoining the property that have been added. They also spent almost $2 million putting in a helipad and amphitheater that they kind of use for entertaining, but also to access the property. And so, one of the things he wanted to be able to do was to, fly privately into either of the nearby county jet ports and jump on a helicopter and be at the estate within 10 minutes or so. And so they added the helipad, but it also has kind of a really neat aesthetic look because it's kind of built in an amphitheater style. So if they wanted to host charitable events or, a wedding or any kind of, big family gathering or friends and family gathering, they could use that space, for music and outdoor entertaining as well. There's a full stone gazebo out there. It sits kind of just below the main estate in kind of a spectacular mountain view setting for that piece of the property as well.
And you touched on it. I think what's cool about this property is they didn't just, level the top of the mountain. They really built the property and its features into it and incorporated the actual, layout of the land.
Yeah, it's really well designed. I mean, you kind of pull up a long winding mountain road and then you have to go through what they call the lookout, which is kind of a classic kind of European, outpost stone arched structure that you drive through to get into the last section of private road that leads up to the estate. It's like something you would have seen in Europe that, kind of served as a forewarning place for a castle. And, so they added some of those pieces to the exterior and then, obviously used a tremendous amount of native stone to do the extensive, landscaping, like the Infinity Edge pool, which is kind of on the right side of the estate and faces west, gets a dead sunset view and, spectacular in the fall when the colors are out. And that also has another entertaining gazebo and an area, to kind of have social outings if you wish. And then it is connected to the main estate by English gardens that were designed by a lady named Rosemary Varay, who's pretty famous English designer, landscape architect, who actually passed. This was one of her last projects around 2000 or so, right when the property was first purchased. And so her stamp is on all of the gardens that surround the perimeter of the property, and they are spectacular.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. So, in your opinion, what do you consider to be the best feature or features of the estate?
Wow, that's really hard to choose. There's so many. I think, the just kind of the expansive panoramic views from the backside of the estate. I mean, it looks out over the Nantahala National Forest. You could see into 3 states. So you're looking out over North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. It has about, almost like a 300-degree view around the perimeter. So you get sunrises on one side where Whiteside Mountain is, and then over on the right side of the property, you get sunsets, which are really spectacular. So I think the view's incredible. And then just the incredible caliber of workmanship on the estate. For example, in the master suite, just kind of a small example, there's a hallway that connects the sitting room with the master salon. And that hallway was all hand painted. He flew a lady in from Italy who spent several weeks painting that area, and she did a 7-layer crown molding treatment that transitions from gold to silver as you walk down the hallway, and you can't even notice the difference. It really just looks like a change in the lighting, but it was actually the way that the painting was done. So, just one example of how incredible the craftsmanship is on this property.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty specific. That's awesome. Now, who would a likely buyer be for this property?
So I think, it's probably somebody who's looking for, kind of a legacy flagship compound estate. And, I think this property, the way it's been built and the way it's positioned and with the appeal of Highlands, it's the kind of property that's going to be there in 100 years. And so I think, for somebody who's looking for kind of a generational compound, I think it has a tremendous amount of appeal for probably somebody on the East Coast, because you can get there, in probably under 2 hours from Florida or, the Northeast. And then, this owner is international. And so he was spending a lot of time in New York and London and was able to get here pretty quickly from, his trips over here, when he was visiting New York. And he had owned property elsewhere in the United States and really zeroed in on this. I think people who like outdoor activities, Highlands is incredible. It's, it was voted one of Travel and Leisure's, finest mountain towns in America. And so this year, I think there's 2,000 miles of trout streams within an hour drive of here. There's numerous waterfalls and, outdoor hiking opportunities. And then the town of Highlands itself, has fantastic dining and culture. There's a really active theater and arts community there. So I think, it's one of the most affluent zip codes on the East Coast. And so you get a lot of people from Florida and the Northeast, and also from the Atlanta area and North Carolina who have property there. But it's got a really upscale dining scene and, a great art scene. And also the Mountain Theater Company puts on, a kind of a world-class set of productions throughout the year in terms of musicals and plays, et cetera. So there's just about everything you could possibly want.
Yeah. So not just a great place to live, but a good place to maybe do a quick weekend visit.
Yeah, I think that's, for somebody who can get there quickly, I think for sure. And then, and it's also sizable enough that if you bring in extended friends and family, there's plenty of room on the estate. There's the guest home is a full 3 bedrooms plus kind of a media room that can also serve as a bunk room if you wanted to put a bunch of kids in there. And it's all attached to the main estate with a really spectacular outdoor covered pavilion. that has, kind of a seating terrace that you can see if you go to the video or look at the pictures online.
Yeah, absolutely. So what generates the market value of this property? Is it the architectural detail, the amazing location and views, or the high quality build?
Well, I think it's kind of a sum of all of the above. There are other properties in North Carolina that, are in the 8-digit offering category, but this one, because of the extensive acreage, it also sits right above Highlands. So it's literally in the city limits. So you're getting access. You can be downtown, for dinner reservations in 7 minutes. And Highlands is, as I just said, spectacular. And so I think that's part of the value proposition, the quality of the construction and the interior design work, just underwent an 8-figure enhancement. And so, if you're touring the inside, the wall coverings are all European imported. They've been handcrafted to match the panels so that, there are hidden doors that open up to laundry rooms and things like that you'd never even know were there, because the paneling and the wall covering patterns are all hand cut to match. And so there are also some ceiling treatments and things like that are, really taking advantage of all the artisan craftsmanship that went into the house. So, to me, it's kind of the views, the craftsmanship, the proximity to Highlands, which is expensive real estate. And then I think you couldn't build it for what it exists for right now on the market. I think by the time you found a mountaintop like that in an area and then had to, go through years and years of construction and on-site enhancements to it, I think it'd be hard to replicate for the price.
Yeah, agreed. And you touched on this a little bit. Highlands was recently named America's best mountain town by Travel and Leisure. What makes it so special to you and to the article itself?
Yeah, and so I think that whole area is really kind of cool. It's Highlands and Cashiers both. They're kind of twin cities, about 15 minutes apart, and there's just a tremendous amount of outdoor amenities. There are world-class golf course neighborhoods and private club neighborhoods in the area. So if you're a golfer, that's got a lot of allure. We already talked about the outdoor recreation. And then the dining and art scene in Highlands is really special for a small town of its size. I think what's also neat is it's kind of isolated, and so the roads, to get there are still kind of your traditional 2-lane winding mountain road, and it sits up about 4,500 feet above sea level. So it's for North Carolina, it's high mountains, and so I think that also makes the climate really appealing. I mean, I think. Nowadays, if you're looking at an estate of this caliber, you start having to take into account, what kind of climate impacts there are going to be on the property if you own it for 20 or 30 plus years, or pass it down to your, estate. And so I think with this one, the climate is phenomenal. I mean, in the summer, it really gets, above the mid 80s up there, tons of sunshine, enough rain to make the landscaping really lush in the area, and a lot of fresh water with waterfalls and streams and things like that. So I think from a natural resources standpoint, it's really got a lot of appeal as well. So great area for sure.
Yeah. And to your point, I read that, people go there to escape the hot summers, 75, 80 degrees is like the standard. That's pretty good weather for the summertime here in North Carolina.
Yeah, and it's still accessible. Like you can hop in the car and be down to the South Carolina coast in 3 hours, 3.5. So you can hit Charleston, you can hit Hilton Head, those type of areas. It's a little over 2 hours from Atlanta. So if you need an international flight, you can fly out of Atlanta or Charlotte if you're not flying private. And so that's really appealing, I think, about the location. And then, it's Western North Carolina, which is just, spectacularly beautiful, most of the year. So.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Yeah, Western Carolina is beautiful.
And I think the other thing about North Carolina is, we're if you look at some of the financial research, the inbound migration to North Carolina and the amount of money that is flowing into North Carolina, I mean, there's supposed to be 20 million people that relocate to the Sun Belt by 2030. And North Carolina right now is the number 3 choice, in terms of destination states for all that inbound migration. So I don't think, real estate prices in North Carolina are going down anytime soon.
Nope, not with those numbers of people moving here. I wouldn't suspect they would. All right, Reed. Well, that was extremely informational. And I have to say, you already know a lot about this area. So I'm excited to see how you do on the lightning round trivia portion of the podcast today. You ready to go?
Yeah, we'll give it a shot.
All right. So question 1. When was the town of Highlands founded?
Okay. I think it was before 1900, I think, or right around there. That one I'm not 100% sure of.
Nope, that was pretty close. 1875, so just 25 years short.
Right.
So actually fairly newer than I would have thought for a town like that.
Yeah, there's a story about how people took, I think, 2 geographic points between like Chicago and New York and drew a line, and Highlands ended up being kind of the center point where those 2 lines crossed or something like that. So interesting how it ended up there. So.
Yep, and they just did that from Kansas, right? I think was the story that the guys were in Kansas and they decided to draw those lines, and that's where it landed.
Right. Yeah.
Nice. So we touched on this one a little bit. The high elevation of the region produces one of the highest average rainfall rates in the U.S., approximately how many inches a year?
Wow, that's a really good one. I would have no idea.
I have no idea of average rainfall inches per year either, but you talk about the lush, vegetation, 95 inches per year, which seems a good amount.
Yeah, it's interesting because I know that area can be, weather impacted from hour to hour, literally. So you can have, a front that moves in, you get some rain in the morning, and then in the afternoon sun comes out. And I think it's one of the reasons why the golf courses up there, most of the people who are serious golfers would tell you they're just in pristine shape because it gets a really nice combination of rainfall and sunshine. So
yeah, I agree that the pictures look beautiful. I mean, just to your point, so green, everything all the time.
Yeah, and not real scorching hot temperatures. So I think you don't get temperatures up in the 100-degree mark very often up there, if at all. So I think that's just kind of ideal, long summer, spring climate to grow things. And, like the gardens here at Sagey are just incredible, about 10 months out of the year. So.
Wow, that's even better than the Vanderbilt estate, I would think.
It's, interesting, kind of similar on a smaller scale for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So this one might be a little easier. What mountain range does the Cashier Highlands Plateau sit upon?
Okay, so I would say that's kind of Blue Ridge Mountains heading into the Smokies.
That's it. Yep. You got it, Blue Ridge. And the Smokies and Blue Ridge, to your point, they're so similar, so close together, but they are distinguishable.
Yeah, a little further west, you get, I think the views from the western side of Sagey, like the poolside views, look out more towards the Smoky Mountain Range, on the Tennessee border. And then the rest of the impact is coming down from the Blue Ridge from more kind of central western North Carolina.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Now, the plateau is popular for its hiking, cycling trails, but also for its world-class what?
Right. Rafting, I would guess.
I thought you would get this because you talked about the trout. Fly fishing.
Okay.
So pretty close. Yeah. A water base. We'll take it.
I know the rafting is also really good coming down out of Highlands because you've got the Chattooga and some other, nearby streams that can give you a pretty good run. And actually one of our agents in the Highlands, Pat Gleason, is a fly fishing aficionado, and he was the one who told me there's 2,000 miles of fly fishing streams within an hour drive. So he's in heaven.
2,000 miles.
Yeah.
Well, I think I read there's over 200 different rivers and streams out there too, because of the rainfall and just the landscape. Yeah. That's a lot.
Yeah.
All right. So last one, kind of water related again. There are two beautiful lakes, Toxaway, which is a private lake, and Lake Glenville, which is a public lake on the Highlands Cashier Plateau. How many waterfalls is Lake Glenville renowned for having?
Oh man, you're getting me with all these academic oriented questions here.
I figure our listeners would love to learn more about the area. So
yeah, I don't know. I know there are numerous waterfalls in that area and coming down out of both of those lakes. And then there are also several, if you're coming up from Wadesville in that area on Highway 64. It's a spectacularly pretty drive coming up into Highlands because there's probably about 5 or 6 really major waterfalls that come in right along the side of the road as you drive up Highway 64 from the west. So that's really pretty.
Nice. Well, you hit it. It was 7. So you were right there. All right. Well, good job. I mean, I think you did pretty good considering these questions are pretty tough.
Yeah, they were for sure.
Well, great. Well, again, Reed, thank you so much for joining me today, and talking about Ivestor's $49 million listing, Sagey Manor.
Well, thanks for having me. It's truly a crown jewel, I think, on the East Coast, and people can find it at sageymanor.com. So that's SAGEE manor.com.
Okay, great. And Reed, if anyone has any questions or needs help with real estate, how can they contact you?
Well, you can reach me at reed@ivestorjackson.com or 704-713-3623.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Sam.
All right. And if anyone wants more information about the firm, you can visit us at ivestorjackson.com. Thank you so much for watching. Take care.